Hello, I'm Kai with...
If you and Mike.
And today we are talking here in the Dragon Slayer about Diamond Comic Distributors filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, as Mike was pointing this out to me, this has some serious ramifications that this is the largest comic book distributor in the world. That means DC, Marvel, and so I will let Mike take it from here to kind of further explain this.
Everything. So basically, and I know most people watching this know this, he doesn't really read comics that much. Not to my knowledge, he's more into the video games, things like that. But the thing of it is Diamond is essentially companies since the pandemic, since 2020, have found ways around having to use Diamond to distribute their books. But Diamond, for the last, I don't even know how long, has been the comic book distributor, from single issues to trade paperbacks to collected editions to omnibuses to everything to dealing with comics. Like you said, from Marvel to DC to IDW, Dark Horse, and any comic company in between. If there's any supply chain issues or anything like that, it's something has happened with Diamond, and there was no other recourse. But during the pandemic, comic companies had to find a way around that, and I think some of them have, which is great. But for those that still use Diamond as their distributor, in the UK, Diamond has filed for the bankruptcy stuff. And it's like, oh, what about the US? Like, I don't know what it is lately. There is certain things going on with certain companies where it's like, everything's fine everywhere else in the world, but the US, oh no, we don't want
so
it. Blah, blah,
one
blah.
thing I'm going to interject on you there, Mike. You said Diamond comic in the UK. This looks like it was filed in the United States, so it looks like it's more than just the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So
that's what I thought it was.
Yeah. So basically what this is pulled exactly directly from Diamond Comics. So this is not any exaggerated reports by media or anything like this. We are reporting to you live. I mean, granted, this is about a week old, but Diamond Comic Distributors has filed a Chapter 11, which means the company's received commitments of $41 million in DIP financing, and Universal Distribution, which is assumingly is another larger distribution company, has bid in a $39 million stalking horse bid, which a stalking horse bid means is the first bid for any assets that are going to be liquidated before public auction. And they're a non-binding letter with the intent to buy Diamond UK, which is a chunk of Diamond Comic, not relative to the United States or anything. So what they're having to do is they're trying to do a financial restructure, and they're looking at any type of interest for potential purchasers, other business units. They're pretty much in trouble, as well as the main comic toy line. So they've been around for over 4 decades. And so that's a long time for a business. But as times have changed, distributions have changed, pandemics affected it. And this is one of the things that even I was looking at this whole thing with the way everything has changed, where you can get ebooks now, and you probably can start getting e-comics at this point. And the change in demand with comics, a lot of comic book companies are starting to do their own self-publishing or going with local publishers. They're no longer going wide and large like they used to. In addition, I think comic book sales have been at lower than normal, because one of the things that we have to look at it on this picture is comic books have not done a well enough job to bring in new blood. They have right now, you're looking at probably your 30, 40, and 50-year-olds that are still have some interest in it, provided that there isn't, there's comics that are interesting to them. If there isn't, or say, let's just example, Marvel ruins a character, some people may not buy that comic, so therefore sales are going down. So the distributors also lose money because they're not sending products out, or they may have a warehouse full of this product and no buyers. So comic book is facing a pretty big hill to climb at this point, I think, overall. And this is just one turning point, I think, in the comic book industry that's going to be very painful.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be a lot of growing pains. And you're right. When 2020 happened and everything else and all that, most of the companies, and honestly before that, really, but so with print comics, it's always been Diamond. Now digital comics have been around for a long time. Did you the audience probably knows this, but before there was Kindle Comics at Amazon, it was actually its own website called Comixology. They were the leading comics website digitally to buy. It actually had a separate website outside of Amazon. It was amazing. It was awesome. It was great. And basically, just from what I have looked up, it's basically the comic book company does one thing and says, hey, we'll send this to you digitally and you can sell it at whichever price. Think of digital comics like when you are ordering off of DoorDash, essentially. Like the Big Mac meal is probably going to cost you $12 to $13 on DoorDash. I don't know what it is in the actual restaurant, but the restaurant dictates those prices that can do. But generally, comics have been anywhere from, in the last 40 years or so, anywhere from $1.99 per issue all the way up to $7, $8, $9.99. Now, usually the $7, $8, $9 comics are special edition books or things like that. Trade paperbacks, collected editions, or what those are called, those are essentially higher because you're getting 6 or 7 issues in one. And instead of buying the single issues at $3 or $4, you just wait, 6-7 months and you just buy the collected edition kind of thing. So the digital side of it has been going on for a long time, but like I said, and like you said, when 2020 happened, DC and Marvel and IDW and Dark Horse and everybody else had to find a way to distribute this stuff physically as a physical comic book, which surprisingly I don't have one sitting around here on my desk at the moment, but normally those would all go through Diamond, and Diamond for the last 40 plus years has been the only distribution for physical comics. Now, with the bankruptcy thing for the restructuring for the Chapter 11, it's like, I wonder what the comic companies are going to have to do, because everybody's calling for, these I say outlandish headlines, and I get it. It's to get eyes on whatever, but like, the comic book industry is dead. The comic book industry is this. The comic book industry, oh my God, Diamond's filed for bankruptcy. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. Well,
I think in some ways they are truthful on this. As far as the publishing side, I think Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, IDW is going to be around. They may have a successor or a new distribution, or they may continue to focus on distributing themselves. There's several prominent new up and coming comics groups that have been successful in their campaign funds, and they're having to find local or other distributing methods to get their comics out. But I do feel like it's in danger, because I don't know if overall the quality of comics have just not appealed to the younger audience, especially when you're looking at like manga. Manga is taking stuff by storm. And I think that comic books have to change their way of thinking. I think in order to bring it back, they have to find a way to get the younger generation interested.
Well, I think that's the thing with comics, is that the comics industry is twofold. It's kind of like Hasbro is twofold. Hasbro nowadays has to cater to the kids and the up and comers, the little Legends class, or the little small toys, or the little whatever toys for kids, and then they, cater to us older adults who were alive when the brand first started 40 something years ago. Same thing with comics. Comics right now is the mainstream is basically for us, and then there's the young adult version of Skybound Entertainment under Image Comics. They are doing a whole kids separate section for Skybound now, where they're going to have a whole young adult version. So that's the difference between comics and every other industry, where the I would not ever say to any child below the age of 16 to read currently Skybound Entertainment's Transformers, because it is very adult. It's not graphic, but it's not made for kids. It's made for like-minded adults, because that's the world we live in. That's the world that the late 70s and early 80s, and maybe a little bit earlier than that, but the late 70s, early 80s, that's what all of these companies like Hasbro and Mattel and everybody else, that's what they started. They started a whole propaganda thing. 40-something years later, we're all here, and we all want stuff for us. And
they have to somehow meet the crossroads to bring in the new blood, but also appease the ones that are truly the ones who are still buying the stuff today.
Yep.
So the problem is they're not replenishing their customers. People are phasing out because times have changed with things. Or, like I said, manga is starting to take everything by storm.
And I mean, manga's been on the rise for years,
and it's just getting bigger and bigger.
It just has been. It's not my cup of tea. I don't dislike it. It's not my style of what I want to read, but that's okay, because not everybody has to like the same things as everybody else, or not everybody has to know everything that everyone else knows, kind of things, because that's the whole point of the human race learning from each other.
But that's the thing, though, is comics and manga both have a place, but right now, comics have to revitalize themselves. That is the problem. That is the core problem. And if they cannot revitalize themselves, and the biggest thing is poor storytelling, characters that people just can't relate to. People used to love reading Superman or Batman because they think, man, I want to be like that. How many people did Superman inspire when it came out over 40 years ago? I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah, and there's probably still people today that it inspires, but it's for today's reader. It's for the 20-something, 30-something. We're in our 40s. We're old
Which,
hats.
Of course, a lot of the 30s and 40s don't like the new Superman stuff that they're trying to come out for the younger. But then, so it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And with also tech, where everybody wants to use a phone for almost everything, I think also reading's kind of diminished itself as well.
I think the digital aspect of reading has it makes it easier, more easily accessible. You have to, spend your $4 on a digital copy, but honestly, if it's something I can just have on my phone and fit in my my phone's in the other room. I can't even do it. I was going to pull up my phone and pull up the app, but I can't do that. The thing is, though, before Amazon bought Comixology and saved it and turned it into Kindle Comics, now after that happened, I have a Kindle Comics app with all of, I have a comics library on my phone of probably over 5,000 trade paperbacks and single issues from 2014. So 2013, 2014, I don't know. No, it was 2013. 2013, when I started the pull bag over on GeekCast Radio Network, geekcastradio.com, the thing was, I was still buying physical issues. I was actually going to my local comic shop at the time in Louisville, Kentucky, The Great Escape on Bardstown Road. And one of the things we were going to cover was Welcome Back Frank, the Punisher, Welcome Back Frank. Now, if you buy Welcome Back Frank in an omnibus, that's all 12 issues in one, like, super thick book. Literally, I kid you not, and I've told this story before elsewhere, I was reading the book, and it had nothing to do with the content of the story. It was the weight of the 12-issue book in my... I fell asleep, the book crashed to the floor. The very next day, I went onto Comixology.com at the time, and I signed up for digital comics, and I haven't looked back since. And I love... The other thing about comic books is physical comics. Most people, just like toy collecting, just like collecting DVDs and VHSs and cassettes and LPs and CDs and Betamax tapes and whatever... Physical comic books take up space. You'll hear people in the comics industry and the comics community say, I have 50 long boxes from 30 years ago, or I have this, or I have that. Whereas digitally, I have over 1,000 different comics on my phone. Mm-hmm. So I don't think necessarily the digital aspect has stopped people from reading comics. I think it's made it easier for them to read comics, but
the appeal's not there, possibly, judging by the sales being down.
Right, and also the sales being down means that maybe it's not there physically either. I don't know. I don't know what this generation, the current generation, is doing as far as their reading habits. I have no idea. I only know what me and my friends do with our reading habits and the people that I talk to on the pull bag about their comic book reading origins and things like that. And it's one of those things where I think there should be more than enough room in the comics industry for both print and digital. Agreed. I don't think you should have to pick between the two. I don't think we need to go all digital. I don't think we need to stop digital and continue in print. And this news here with Diamond is, this is a thing.
But with Universal Distribution purchase, working an alliance with Alliance and Diamond UK teams, they're trying to build a better balance sheet, which can in terms have better assets and growth opportunities for retailers and suppliers. Time will only tell if they can somehow pull it around with all the comic book companies out there. We'll see. That's going to be a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough hill to climb. So I don't think personally that comics are, oh my God, it's the end of comics as we know it. I think it's another transformation. I think it's another change. Now, if DC or Marvel or whoever, I think if I could be wrong. So folks, if you're watching this, and I don't think any of the folks at Image Comics are going to watch this, but if they do, I'm sorry if I'm wrong in this, but I think Image does their own distribution, or I don't remember how they do.
I think a lot of them are doing their own distribution now.
Yeah, which is fine. Honestly, I think that's great.
They cut out the middleman.
Yeah, cut out the middleman, I mean, I don't, company's been in business for 40 years, whatever, and all this and all that, and they've brought books to millions of people, but if times they are changing, and it just...
Remember, in business, you either change with the times and you learn to adapt, or you fizzle out. Yep. So time will only tell distributors. So I think we should wrap this up.
Sure.
All right. Thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news with Kai and...
If you and Mike.
See you next time.